I had a super wonderful childhood. I had parents that lived very sacrificially for us and gave us so many wonderful things to do, 4-H and church, and horses were a big part of that. I came along when my parents had the financial wherewithal to help me compete for the national championships. With all of the training for the national championships, I might spend 6 or 7 hours a day in a saddle. They kept putting me on other horses so I could learn to ride all different kinds of horses. So this required lots of hours in the saddle and lots of trail rides, lots of jumping, lots of riding lessons, lots of competing. But at the same time, my body took a lot of wear and tear. Having achieved something at the very high level served me quite well in the corporate world. I rose over time to be an executive in a couple of different companies. I had this past of this super athletic past together with a high stress life. My body began to implode about when I was in my late 40s. I started to have spine trouble and leg trouble and pain radiating down my leg. And before I knew it, I ended up having to leave my corporate career after 30 years of doing this and really being at the very pinnacle of my career because my body was just self-destructing. Fast forward to today, 22 orthopedic surgeries later, metal in 6 places in my body, and an overdose of medication by a doctor who meant well, was trying to treat me for pain, but gave me a drug that, it was an off-label use of this drug. It was really an anti-seizure drug, but she was trying to help me with pain, nerve pain radiating from my spine. And the dose was quadrupled that year, and it put me in a whole different reality. And that was 4 years ago. I couldn't walk, talk, take care of myself. I couldn't carry a conversation because I couldn't remember what I was saying. I couldn't get dressed by myself because I couldn't remember what I was doing. I couldn't remember how to work the controls in the shower. My filters were disabled in my brain, and that was completely disabling me. When I would close my eyes, I could see colors exploding behind my eyelids. And I thought, wow, that was pretty. That was new. What was that? And I actually prayed that somehow I'd be able to get onto paper what I was seeing behind my eyelids. I picked up a pencil one day because I sensed I was supposed to do that. I sensed God telling me that I should design an umbrella because an umbrella was a symbol of protection. If we carry an umbrella over us, it protects us from the rain. And I was sensing that God was explaining to me that He was protecting me during this time and that I could trust Him and that I should design an umbrella as a symbol of His love and protection for me. Every time I did it, I wouldn't know what it was going to look like until I put the last little piece into place. And all of a sudden, all these other patterns would burst out of it, and I would see the beauty of what it was. And I was so excited by that. I did it like, all I could do was that. I had 4 shoulder surgeries. I couldn't even move. So therefore, I did that 14 hours a day. In doing this, it's forcing your brain to do mental calisthenics. You're reversing the image in your mind as you're looking at it. And it's called radial symmetry. And it's a tool that art therapists use for people with brain injuries to heal them and rehabilitate them. And I was designing an umbrella, but God was healing me. When I was no longer drawing the umbrellas, I had been brave enough to actually paint. Someone said, pick up a paintbrush, it'll be magic in your fingers. I was like, I can't paint, I can only draw. But everybody can paint. I mean, like, that was just silly. If I could draw, I could paint. In almost no time at all, entered my art into an international art contest for equine artists. I ended up winning that competition. There were 131 entries, and I'd been painting at that point just a few months. And there were 6 different categories, so there were 6 first place winners. And I won the wild horse category against people who had been only equine artists, and that's all they did their whole life was paint horses. And they were professional people. And here I was nobody. I didn't even know how to paint, but I somehow was doing this. There's this phenomenon out there called sip and paint and sip. But I've never been a sip and paint artist. I do lead groups, and some of that happens, but it's always way different than that. It's always been something that was super inspiring, linked to my faith, telling a part of the story, or telling someone else's story. Everybody's an artist, so that's what I do with groups. They come here thinking they can't do it, they look afraid, and they leave knowing that they're an artist too. And the most satisfying thing of all is to have people contact me and say, look, I'm doing art with my kids, or look, I entered this art contest, or I sold this piece of art, and that for me is just like, you know, that's the best. That's why I paint. There are definitely issues. I am altered, I'm different, and as much as I have all these special things happening, I still have a brain injury, and it's changed who I am.